7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
What's up, everybody? It's been a minute. I haven't been on YouTube for quite some time, but safe to say that I am definitely back at this. So let's get the video started. So today, we're going to be talking about a game that I recently played called Hogwarts Legacy. Now, the game is definitely good. Before any of you crucify me in the comments, just know that I'm an absolute Chad and I don't really give a shit. Other than that, though, I am open to some critical comments as well as some debates and conversations that we can definitely have. However, I won't be very on top of any drama surrounding this game. So as a forewarning, I'm not going to be addressing any drama that you may have towards the game outside of the scope of the game. It is a video game after all, and personally, I don't really want to involve politics. As you can see, I'm not really someone that really cares for that much. I am pulling a literal moist critical right now with a white t-shirt and a very unkempt appearance. However, I will say that I am definitely excited to be discussing this game with you, as I would like to share my thoughts on the game and why, personally, overall, I think the game is okay. Now, to get started, I do want to say that I did put a lot of time into a lot of thought into the creation of this video. I overthought it, to be honest with you. I wrote a whole fucking script, and honestly,
Didn't really work out for me.
I think I'm just going to stick to what I do best, which is improv and just go off topic here. So, Hogwarts Legacy. Personally, as I said, I think that the game is okay. There are lots of good, but a lot of bad, and the bad, however, is not super negative. It's very niche. Now, before I get into that, I just want to start off with the positives. So, to begin, the best thing that I can say about the game, other than the graphical fidelity, which I will get into a little bit, would be the combat. For me, I'm someone who loves games like Elden Ring, the Souls series. I've pumped thousands of hours into each individual game. Yeah, that's right. I've pumped in thousands of hours into each individual game, Bloodborne included. And I've played all of the Souls games, the Souls-likes that are like spin-offs in the same sense, like Nioh 2, Sekiro, all those kinds of games. And to be frank with you, I absolutely love that style of combat. Now, when a game mimics that or comes close to that, I am very much enamored by the gameplay. However, with Hogwarts Legacy, I will say that it gives me a sort of feeling that I am playing a Souls-like in a sense. Now, I know it's kind of cringe nowadays to call everything Souls-likes. However, I do like the combat style where it's very engaged, where you're attacking while dodging, while parrying, which is a kind of concept that Dark Souls has perfected, but it has been coined as a Souls-like. Now, obviously, there's more to what a Souls-like is, but I will say the combat does remind me a bit of Dark Souls combat. I do feel that the overabundance of enemies during a fight makes it even more enjoyable. And because you're able to utilize spells and other sorts of mechanics that you have at your disposal at the time of wherever you're at in the story, to basically make each fight interesting and perhaps unique based on your build. To get back on track with positives, I will say, like I've mentioned before, graphical fidelity. The graphics in this game are absolutely exquisite. They're top-notch. They're pretty good for what they are. On the PlayStation 5, to which I play it on this absolutely gorgeous TV, they're very good. To be honest with you, I saw myself really enjoying the world that I was in. And frankly, I really thought to myself, wow, like, they really put one-to-one like from the movies. A lot of what you see in Hogwarts, you do see some scenes in movies like in the Harry Potter series, and you do kind of get this like, I remember this and I remember that. And it does give you a sense of nostalgia. Now, to get to the nitty-gritty of the video, you guys, buckle up because I'm putting on my big boy pants and we're going to go into what's really sour for me for Hogwarts Legacy. I would like to start off with the first point, more dialogue than play. A lot of people might give me grief for this, and again, I would like to understand your opinions. Of course, I may be wrong. However, for me, what I will say is that the game definitely gives more dialogue than actual gameplay. Now, that wouldn't be so bad, but when you are excited to fight, use spells, and to really just get at it and really like take on the world, it definitely sucks when you have to stick through dialogue. It really does put you in a sense of playing cutscenes more than actually playing the video game, because during the cutscenes, or rather the talking segments with the characters, you have choices, and those choices can affect certain outcomes during the conversation. And that's also another thing that was quite disappointing, is that your decisions don't really affect much, other than a couple of decisions here and there, but they're more of a detriment, so you wouldn't really have any reason to do them. You would just feel like, at that point, there's no real reason to say, no, I might as well just take the L on this one, and let's move on. So due to the overwhelming amount of dialogue, there definitely is a lot that needs to be fixed, a lot that needs to be adjusted, because the dialogue doesn't really have any impact towards the story. You're just simply crawling along. Now, obviously, it's a form of gameplay. However, honestly, I didn't really feel like there was a lot that I can change. There was a lot of dialogue options, but not a lot of consequence. And there was not a lot of real shift in the story. Now, obviously, based on the house that you choose, there will be perhaps more side quests and more things to do. However, honestly, it doesn't really matter, because that's the next part that I wanted to bring up. Number 2. Boring characters. The characters I find are quite boring. Personally, I found myself not really caring about anyone. I really stopped caring about any sort of characters in the game. I felt that a lot of the characters that were in my surroundings were really just that, characters. And it really put into perspective how badly characters can be set in the world. I found it so boring to listen to some of these characters complain. Man, does it feel boring when you have to go back for side quests and do these side quests that are absolutely meaningless? And not only just that, if you want to progress the main story or progress a specific quest line that is actually quite interesting, but you're gatekept by dialogue with boring characters, it really puts into perspective how bad certain characters are. There are a couple good characters, I will say. There's Professor Fig, who is a prominent character throughout the story, Deke, and one of my favorites, Sebastian. Now, Sebastian, for all those that have played the game and do know, I will avoid spoilers if possible, is an absolute fucking Chad. Now, he definitely has a very big turning point throughout the game, but his questline, in my opinion, is quite enamoring. It is definitely the best part of the game, and I definitely feel that it's sad that it wasn't part of the main story. Now on to my next point, which is a pretty big and interesting topic for me, because this is something that I've noticed in a lot of video games nowadays. A lot of games definitely don't do this enough, and this is one of them. Now, the next point that I have is enemies. The enemies in this game are good. Don't get me wrong. They are quite interesting. I think that they definitely pose a threat. They are definitely imposing when you first see them, and they are pretty interesting to fight. They give you a lot of good challenge, and they definitely add a lot to the combat. Now, I will say, Ranrock and his loyalists, who are the main villain of the game, are actually quite good. I have no complaints. Surprisingly, I think that the story is quite interesting for him in his perspective, and for his portion, where you're trying to learn about him and what has gone on with him. I definitely think that his part is actually quite interesting. And as a villain goes, I mean, to be honest with you, it is a little vanilla, and vanilla is a word that you will hear me use often, but honestly, not as bad as I expected. To be honest, the game does a great job at showing you how big of an asshole a villain can really be, and you can get that sense throughout the game. And I will say that they did a very good job on that. However, the reason why I brought up enemies is because enemy variety. I know this may be a point of contention for some, as it may not be that big of a deal, but I definitely like a good variety in game. Now, I don't expect the enemies to be constantly different, because I understand that creating characters, the meshes, and the models in a video game can be quite time consuming as well as difficult. However, I don't think that we're very far off from saying that this is a quote unquote AAA title. And with a AAA title comes a AAA price. I will top off on that at the end, but I want to say that Obviously, I don't expect them to put in 1,000 enemies like it's as if it's Skyrim or something. But at the same time, I do feel like it's important that we try and give a sense of progression. It doesn't feel really good when I'm fighting loyalists at the beginning, and I fight those exact same loyalists at the end. But it gets stale when it's the same types of enemies that you get to encounter. Kind of makes it worse when there's this big open world, and honestly, the only enemies you'll find out there are Ranrock loyalists, there's the poachers, there's spiders, there's trolls. Trolls are definitely good, and then there's wolves. And to give you a little bit more sprinkles, you'll find some zombies here and there. Very rarely you'll find in the main story there's these little areas that you'll go with some big knights that are basically copy and pasted throughout each and every one of these sections that you'll get through the main story. And frankly, the only thing that they did was make small enemies, medium-sized enemies, and then large enemies. And honestly,
Not really much difference.
you'll see the same enemies in different areas, just in increased number, which again does make sense to the story. As you go through the game, it gets more difficult. And obviously, in certain situations that have a higher importance, there will be a higher concentration of enemies. The only difference that they would have for Ranrock loyalists, for example, were the trolls. Now, the trolls are an enemy that definitely come out through the game as quite little mini bosses that you'll find scattered throughout the world. I don't think that that's a bad choice. I just feel like, again, there could have been a little bit more variety to what they could be producing. Because, again, as I've listed all the enemy types in the game. There could be a couple of others that I may not have thought about off the top of my head, but you will see the exact same thing throughout the game. Now, that isn't so bad, and this is why I'm saying that this point isn't as bad as I'm making it out to be. So you can obviously hold your horses before you start fucking keyboard warrioring me in the chat or in the comments. The problem that I'm seeing with this, however, is the fact that I've put in a ton of hours into the game. I'd say about minimum of 60 upwards to 100, and I've put in an enormous amount of time going through each side quest, going through the world, exploring everything, pit stopping at every little activity that I can, and realizing that the world doesn't feel natural. The enemies aren't really placed in natural areas. Now, obviously, the Ranrock loyalists have spread far and wide throughout the world, and their reach is quite far. So you definitely will find them everywhere. I mean, you'll find them in camps, in caves, on the roads, in towns, and in your mom. But anyways, the point is that you will see them quite often. They're just very scattered, and they're not in as big numbers from time to time. Sometimes they're just scattered on the road, sometimes they're looking in the forest, or they're doing whatever. And that's not too bad, but there's not much variety. Like, I find myself fighting spiders, and I'm just telling myself, how many fucking spiders do we need in fantasy games? Is there not any other cool enemy type that we can find? I mean, shit, there are so many fucking spiders in fantasy games. Like, here, I could show you, like, boom, 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 spiders. Why? Can we not have a different variety of enemy? Why does it have to be specifically spiders? Now, I get, it makes sense in the universe, but I mean, fuck. We had fantastic beasts and where to find them. You're telling me we couldn't pop like an enemy type from one of them, like a beast or something that's other than a spider? And then don't get me started, wolves. Why the fuck did we need wolves in the forest? Like, yeah, you can go into the Forbidden Forest or wherever throughout the world and there'll be a couple of wolves. Fine. Why the fuck wolves? Couldn't it have been like a bear or like something sprinkled in there that's like a little bit more interesting? I never, ever felt that any of the animals in this game, except a couple of spiders, were a threat at all. I never felt that they were a threat. And I played on one of the hardest, I think it was the hardest difficulty. I played on the hardest difficulty, and I didn't feel like the wolves were a threat. They were just there as target practice, which is understandable. But when you spread them out in this giant world, you get a little fed up on hour 50 to fight wolves. They're no longer real target practice, and they're more just an obstacle for you to just fly away from. This gets to my last point, the story. The story, in my opinion, is quite interesting but falls flat. The beginning was an absolute shit show. Starts off with crazy fast-paced action. You're going nuts to butts. Crazy, all sorts of shit flying around. You feel your heart palpitating, your blood pressure's rising, and you just want yourself a fucking Scooby snack because you are absolutely zooted with the amount of fuck shit that goes on at the beginning. I'm telling you, it starts off fucking La La Land, chit-chatting, and boom, you're fucking flying through the sky, absolute Iron Man style, and shit just fucking hits the fan, and then back to relax. You're a fucking insomniac in this game. You feel like you're about to fall asleep, and then boom, fuck, what the fuck is going on? And then, oh, well, I can't fall asleep again. But wait, never mind. The game's back to being at slow as ass pace. Time to go back to take a fucking nap. I even wrote it in my notes. I was so pissed about this shit. I put a fucking angry face in this goddamn video. And I don't even read from the script. I put an angry face in the fucking script that I'm not even reading. The game is good, but the story falls flat in my opinion. Frankly, the story is pretty bogus. I found it to be kind of boring. The Ranrock side of things is quite interesting. They've done a great job with the villain, but it's so vanilla. There's no spice. There's no plot twists. There's nothing. Nothing that what you do in this game kind of changes the story. Literally. You have all these choices, but they don't affect anything in the story. This is as generic as a lot of the content that Marvel pumped out in 2022. I mean, fuck, it's so bland. And I didn't see myself actually interested in the story. And what's worse is that Sebastian, a character I brought up prior, his side quest is more enjoyable than the main one. So why is it that and this is the part that really frustrates me, why is it that I'm gatekept from continuing Sebastian's quest line through the main quest? You have to go through the boring main quest in comparison and have to complete activities that are kind of boring that you've already done 30 times prior in order to continue this emotional ride with Sebastian. Now, to clarify, the questline with Sebastian is very difficult to digest at times, and it honestly is the most emotional part of the game. And in that instance, you feel drawn to the characters and drawn to the storyline that's going on in front of you. And what sucks is that the second that you're done a chapter in this questline, boom, pause. Go do the main quest and go do some other shit, level yourself up, and then come back. I lose all pacing. I don't feel like I'm actually a part of his story. It feels like it's artificially slowing me down in order to get me to pump up my levels and pump up my gear score so that I can go do his quest. That's fine. But when the main quest is as boring in comparison, it makes me dread ending Sebastian's quest line just to go and level up. Personally, I felt that I was excited to do more side content and just dreading the main content because frankly, the main content kind of put me to sleep. I didn't really feel like it was that interesting. It was more bland than any of the side quests in the game. And to be honest with you, the world of Hogwarts Legacy have so much that it can offer you, but refuses to do so because it takes a very safe path throughout their story. It doesn't feel like there's any risks taken. And that's quite disappointing. Personally, I think the game is good, but before you guys base me like a Thanksgiving turkey, I will say that I very much enjoyed my time playing the game, but I felt like I didn't get the satisfaction I thought I'd get by playing it. I didn't feel like I got the ending I feel like I deserved. I felt like all this work for a pretty moot ending. And you do get a choice of a good and a bad ending, quote unquote, but frankly, just take the good ending. The bad ending really doesn't make much sense, and it felt really rushed. It didn't really feel like there was much thought put into it, and it asks you have a lot more questions than you do answers at the end because they don't really tie up the ending for the bad one as good as they do for the good one. So that's about it for me. I'm very glad that I'm back with making YouTube videos, and I'm going to make this kind of style content if you guys prefer. I'm going to review any kinds of games that I can that come my way. The next game that I would like to review would be Elden Ring because I have been hearing a lot of good with the multiplayer update that they gave with the PvP, as well as the DLC that may be coming in the coming months that I'm very excited for. So stay tuned for that. Let me know what you guys think about this kind of style video, and if you guys liked it, then I will definitely come back to doing this. But I thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all in the next video. If you guys want to see me live, I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/DVILM4N. The link will be here on screen if you want to click it. If not, it'll be in the link down below. I definitely love streaming, and I stream about once or twice a week for about 5 to 6 hours per stream. So I do the best that I can, and I love bringing our community together. That being said, that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Peace.